Hello there, and welcome back to ABLF Talks. We are continuing our conversations with regional leaders and really looking at many of the big socioeconomic challenges in the world, in the region, and indeed for industry sectors and for individuals here. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined now with the Regional Senior Managing Director from Accenture in the Middle East, a man who has almost 25 years experience with this company. So I'm excited that he's going to join us. So please, a very, very warm welcome for Alexis Lecanuet. Alexis, thanks for being with us. Bonjour.
Bonjour, thanks Etna, and thanks ABLF Talks for this opportunity. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Now we are going to conduct this in English. My French wouldn't be good enough to do that. So it's great to have you here, a French national, but you've been, here with us for a long time. You know the region very well here. And I wanted to talk to you about corporate leadership, because this is something, that is very much at the very, very core of what you do with Accenture in the Middle East and indeed around the world. And when we look at the shift, I suppose, in corporate leadership and how it has changed over the years, are you experiencing, and is there a need for, I suppose, a more inclusive approach when it comes to leadership now? How do you see things in terms of how they've changed over the last few years?
So I will come here, there, and I think it's an absolute priority more now than. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, you're coming loud and
okay,
clear.
sorry, something was popping up. So
we'll start again.
I will come to the inclusive leadership, but I think, let's set the context, because I think this has a, let's say, a way forward to the inclusive leadership. I think we were all significantly impacted by the pandemic, both as leaders, as family members, and both our families, our personal life, and our business were impacted. Every crisis came with risk and opportunity. And now the way we see the world is that we have the opportunity, similarly to the post-World War in the previous century, we have the opportunity now to define the century. And we believe as Accenture that 2021 is still on, and 2021 will be probably seen in few years from now as the year that define the current century, probably more than 2001. And this is what is at stake. And a lot of things that were already here were already in the baking or even in the transformation trend, like some of the digital technology, some of the leadership evolution are now pivotal to the ability to be relevant to the new world. And we are blessed to live in a country here in UAE where we will have the platform to define this new world, where we will have the platform to come together during Expo 2020, to come together, to share views, to compare notes of what is the latest, what is the most relevant, what has changed, and to define what will be a successful future. And back to your question, leadership, inclusive leadership is critical to that change. Our people, our workforces, our families, our communities were critical to create first resilience during the let's say the pandemic and the COVID, and are the core for the next generation. In Accenture, the way we set our purpose, and it was, was not driven by the pandemic, but it was very much aligned, is that our purpose is to deliver the promise of technology and human ingenuity. So we are living in the paradox of technology being everywhere in our life as a tool, as an enabler, as a disruptor of our businesses. But the ability to leverage technology will only come with a strong ingredient, with a stronger ingredient of the human touch. When we talk about skills, we have the twofold. We have the new technology skills. Are you ready for the digital, for the artificial intelligence, and are you able to create, to innovate, to collaborate in order to leverage those technology in the business context? For me, This is the main rationale. We are not inclusive. We are not talking about inclusive leadership to be nice. We are talking about inclusive leadership to have the right level of diversity in the team in order to create the most innovative, creative, collaborative team to invent the future.
I'm so inspired by what you're saying. I mean, I think anybody listening to it is, without a doubt. And sometimes I think we look at, I think the damage done by the pandemic, and there wasn't a whole lot of good news around. But as you say, when we look at 2021, it will really be a pivotal year. It has actually maybe made us step back, but so much has happened, I think, in this year. And even though there is uncertainty in the future, I mean, you're definitely sounding very optimistic that we will learn so many lessons from here that will almost leapfrog us into a whole new way of working. Would that be right?
Yeah, no, but for sure. And I don't want, to ignore the bad side of the crisis, risk and opportunity. And we all were impacted by the risk side. But the key message, as you mentioned, is really now is the opportunity time. And we saw in the last few months, huge impact in the back to growth, back to profit, for the companies that were taking care of their people in a different way. At least I would mention three things. The ability to listen to the front line in a more accurate, in a more fragmented, in a more consolidated way through, data is one way, one level, one technology to get more of that, but listening to the front line, because this is where the Uber is the hold, and this is where your customers are basically testing the resilience of your business. The second is about the well-being of the workforce. We were again impacted. The ability to be resilient is going through the way to organize, to listen, and to care about the people. The well-being level is now part of the ability to be just efficient and relevant and the third is the enablement. We all talk about remote working and things like that. This is a set of capabilities that are not only reinventing the workplace, but also the workforce, the collaboration. If you are fast on those three at scale with your workforce, you are seeding the ingredients of being relevant in your future industry place.
Now, do you also look at this on a global scale? Because clearly, I mean, if I talked to you probably a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, a lot of this was happening, and a lot of, developed first world companies and countries and international kind of big companies, they were all heading that way. But now we look around the world and everybody has been touched by the pandemic and everybody has had to adjust. So it's not really about cultures, it's not really about regions. I think, do you see almost a blanket focus in terms of everybody realizing that they actually have to adapt and change, or maybe just risk going out of business because everyone is feeding into the international good and the international economy? What are you finding in different regions? Is there any resistance to this?
Yeah, and the pandemic created a bit of a paradox on that, because on one side, we see a lot of those global trends. And as you mentioned, all those ingredients, digital transformation, artificial intelligence, automation, virtual collaboration, all those ingredients were there. They were just accelerated. And this is global pattern. But then at the same time, one of the resilient factors of the pandemic, we usually consider 4 resilient factors of the pandemic: your people, your workforce and workplace, your supply chain, your demand channel, and your system. The supply chain, to be resilient, need to be reinvented and most of the time more local. So at the same time, you have a kind of a paradox with global trend accelerating everywhere and across industry, across country, and a very specific place sometimes by country to relocalize and to de-risk the global supply chain. So it's a tension that we have to solve industry by industry currently.
Indeed, when it comes to the role of leaders, and particularly, CEOs, when they look at the outlook, they look at their business strategy, how do they have to adapt? Have you seen, a big difference? And, have you seen people openly embrace maybe, a new direction where they're going to have to look and perhaps change how they work as well?
Yes, I think what we saw in the first phase of the pandemic is that the strategy were to be adapted around those 4 resilience points. So how do I reinvent my workplace, my workforce, the level of collaboration? How I reinvent my channel to address clients? Some of the industry have to just digitalize their channel to their customer through digital channel, website, app overnight. If not, they were just out of business. So this was second ingredient of the supply chain I mentioned. Everybody has to revisit supply chain. Currently we see one of the obvious evidence of that. We see Vietnam booming, probably at the expense of China for some of the supply chain that we are considering. So that's on the supply chain reinvention. And the last is a system to enable this collaboration. Cloud technology was already there. We see now the cloud exponentially growing because it was proven to be an element of the resilience of the business. So looking, I would say, backward, those were the 4 ingredients of resiliency. Looking forward, I think we are starting to see what we call here in Accenture the 4 runners. So the ones that are leading the transformation or the bounce back of their industry. And there is some commonalities on the way they bring to the party what I was calling earlier the human ingenuity, the way they revisit and realign to the sustainable goals. We can elaborate on that, but I think the SDGs are converging with business intent, and we see that as a trend of the post-pandemic, at least not created by the pandemic for sure, but accelerated by the post-pandemic world. Leveraging the technology in a way to redesign the business component and connecting with the communities and connecting with their ecosystem. And again, ecosystem can be very different industry by industry to create this additional well-being that is a basis for stable business.
Now, I wanted to talk to you about sustainability and about the goals. So it's as good a time as any since you brought it up. So we'll segue into that right now. And of course, as a signatory, particularly with the UN Global Compact, at the heart of what Accenture is also doing too. How do you see corporate leaders really ensuring that sustainability, how can it be built in, those principles that can be implemented in companies? And, are you finding that leaders are actually really concerned about them and want to do something about it?
So similarly, I think this is moving in the right direction. Last year, with one of our partners, so-called SAP, we decided to sign the United Nations Global Compact and to work to accelerate it. And our contribution to it was what we call an ambition guide. And this tool is basically to help leaders, corporate businesses to set their ambition toward the 10 SDGs. First, to set and to see where I can fit the ambition, because this is no longer corporate citizenship. The main trend and the main ask is 10 years ago, we were saying every business will be a digital business. Now we say in 10 years, every business will be a sustainable business. So this convergence is critical. And the tool we bring is a kind of also a benchmark guide on the 10 SDG in your industry. You can basically compare and see how you can, if you are an energy company, it's not about offsetting the impact of carbon energy that you are currently, is about accelerating the rotation to new renewable energy source. So This benchmark, I think, is a great tool for large companies to reassess the strategy and create what I was calling this convergence between sustainable from the macro level for the planet, defined by the SDGs, and sustainable for my business that can drive an impact in my business and drive an impact for the planet.
And I think that's so encouraging, because I think, the difference we see from perhaps 10 years ago, 5 years ago, where corporations had, their corporate social responsibility. And it's a very different mindset, and the fact that you were saying now, it's not just about being a good corporate citizen, it's about actually really demonstrating it and doing it. And again, how can you help work companies the way they build, I suppose, a strategic plan to make sure, that they're heading in the right direction?
I think, there's still a lot of work to do. And to your point, I think I saw a recent, let's say, poll saying that only 21% of the CEOs of global firms were currently considering the sustainability business, the sustainability aspect of their business as a real business topic, versus the rest still in the corporate citizenship type of category, which is a totally different play. If you want to drive an impact, you need to drive from the core strategy, from the enablement of the technology to have positive impact on your people, positive impact of your negative externalities that can impact negatively the planet, positive impact on your healthy ecosystem. So the combination of those three should start from the core. And I think the main drive and the main thing that I would see very positively going forward is to exit the corporate citizenship category and cluster, and to say my sustainable strategy is converging with my business strategy. There is new services, there is new experiences for the customer, for the visitor, for the citizen to be invented. And the blurring line of the industries are creating opportunity for a lot of those large companies. So this is the way we should start, from the core of the strategy to converge and to integrate sustainability and business strategy.
Now, and of course, you talk a lot about, I suppose the promise of technology and human ingenuity, as you say. When you look at corporations and you look at companies, what do you think they can do, to really create, I suppose, an environment that will encourage, employee innovation? Because a lot of people are still working for big corporates and they want to be very much a part of that. And it's a new mindset, but you have to have buy-in from everybody.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And I think what we are trying to do ourselves, because, we are a small company of 625,000 people globally. So we usually are not considering that we need to lecture the world about what to do, but we need to do it, to try hard and harder internally, and then to leverage, let's say, our platform and our client to integrate. And on our people side of the equation, I think there's a couple of things that were critical in the last few months and will become critical, again, to be the most innovative, creative, collaborative business to help our client to transform to their new. One is around the well-being. I was mentioning that, but I think you cannot consider that your workforce is a productive element in your supply chain. This was the case in the previous century. The reality of what I was mentioning earlier, the combination of the automation and the AI, basically put even more focus on the ability to play with the human ingenuity. To get this human ingenuity at play in your business, you need to focus on the well-being, and which is coming with a lot of enablement, work from home, flexible workplace, collaboration, scope definition for roles. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is really to deal with this bipolar skill set I was mentioning. More technology enabled, more human. And to consider that, and you know, typically in Accenture, we build a program that we call TQ, technology quotient. If you are more human, you are more, you know, IQ and EQ, so intelligent quotient and emotional quotient. This is the human side of the equation. And then you combine it with the technology quotient, which is the ability to leverage the latest in a human-centered way to deliver new experience, new product, new services for your business. This combination, I see that as a key tipping point of leveraging your workforce for your future business.
Yeah, I think that sounds really exciting. It's like, as you say, the combination with IQ, EQ, and now TQ, bring them all together. It really looks like the recipe for success. I have a question here from Mark David from the UAE, and it sort of leads on from what you're just talking about. So, you know, having got buy-in from the employees, from your people, you know, from that, you know, the human resources that you have, how do you actually begin to groom future leaders for the company? Because that's something I think companies, they're getting better at. Yes, succession planning from the top, but also, I guess, you know, leadership within different divisions and making sure that everybody can actually rise and be part of the success of the company.
Yeah. So I think, you know, on that, and I think it's even more important in the region. The reality or specificity in the region is we still have significant part of our workforce, which is expats. And, you know, I'm part of this group, so we can call them committed expats for the well-being of the region. But the reality or model, and I think the model of the region, is that it will be local, national driven more and more. There's no reason that this is not implemented here as elsewhere. And if this is a critical element to be relevant to the local ecosystem, it starts with hiring, growing local, national leader and leaders for the next generation. We do that, you know, at scale. As I was mentioning, we do that everywhere on Earth, including in the region. Now we will reach, for our case, only 1,500 people in the region. But in this 600,000 employee pool that Accenture is globally that I was mentioning, we are hiring every year more than 120,000 people. Most of them new graduates. So, and this imperative to hire at the bottom of the pyramid, new graduate, and to have them learning on the front line I was mentioning every year, combined with the tools I was mentioning on the EQ and TQ learning opportunity, is what is going from the base, the future leaders. We are not importing leaders from elsewhere, we are growing them, and this is through interest of the job, jobs that are developing people, not delivering only outcome, and regular learning opportunities in the new, we call it sometimes snacking content. So it's no longer learning 3 months in a classroom, it's learning opportunity every month with colleague or with content that you can snack in between 2 meetings or to client deliverable.
And again, I think it's about continuous learning. I think we hear that from so many people. It's not about getting your degree, getting your qualification, and then you're done, you go to work. It never stops. And I have another question that's come in here from Bahrain, just following on indeed very, very nicely on that. And it's from Disha Dadlani here, talking about, you know, what is your advice to young people coming into, I guess, any industry? You know, it's competitive at the moment. It's an uncertain market, but then when has it not been? And I think there's so many dynamics at play at the moment. You know, when you're looking at young leaders, I mean, what are you looking for? What qualities do they need? Yes, the IQ, the EQ, the TQ, you pull all that together, but what do you want to see? What should they be offering in one way? And then what do they get in return?
I think there is a unique opportunity for this new generation joining the workforce to challenge what I would call the underlying assumption. the world has changed. This is true for customer, for employee, for citizen, for visitor. So basically, there is a unique opportunity now to say, if I want to serve the current customer that are different, I have to re-challenge the underlying assumption of my current business. You know, just an example in retail. The website, the e-commerce was built as an additional store to the brick and mortar. And of course, there is a couple of pure players, but the majority was transformation from actual store to digital store. So it's like a store showcased online and then with the delivery model. There is a lot of different buying opportunity that are experiences that are different from decided for the next 1 hour to go to a store and to buy product. That's unique assumption, saying the shopping experience is no longer deciding to go to something you call shop or e-shop and decide what you want to purchase, but maybe something in the social network way of it, or can unveil a significant new opportunities, new experiences for customers and things like that. So this simple example is true in every industry. As a young graduate joining the workforce, your ability to integrate the latest of technology and to re-challenge the underlying assumption of your own industry is unique now. And probably the leadership is a bit more open in the last 6 months than was 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think you are. You're so right. We have to wrap this up, so I'm going to give you almost 2 questions in one, because we didn't get an opportunity to talk about Expo 2020 coming up, and I know Accenture is going to be a part of that. But if you can maybe combine that in one sort of answer for me. You know, we have Expo coming up, but we have 1/4 of the year left. There's so much that companies, that individuals, that people can do in terms of what you say to making 2021 a really pivotal year for everybody. So I'll leave that thought with you and send us out on an encouraging note.
No, thanks again for the opportunity. And I think, you know, the message was in the question. Expo, if you believe that some of the trend that I was sharing, some of the latest ingredients to be successful in the future were almost true, we have ahead of us a great platform, connected mind, reinvent the future. And as you know, Her Excellency Rima Hashimi is always saying, we have only one chance to get it right. Expo is a unique timing, 6 months, with more than 180 countries with their latest. This on sustainability, mobility, you know, the opportunity, the theme of Expo. We have a unique platform as resident of the region and inhabitant of the region to leverage that and to contribute to this change. And we can change at speed and at scale. My feeling is that this is what is at stake for the coming 18 months, not only to impact our life, but to reinvent what will be the learning and will be the force of this century. We are very excited as premier partner of Expo to contribute to our extent to this, let's say, overwhelming ambition.
So lots to do and lots we can do. And as you say there, you know, I think people have the tools, the human ingenuity that has always been there. And I think now it's really about realizing it from everybody, from an employee point of view, from an employer, from an entrepreneur. Really, it's about, you know, thinking differently and making sure that 2021 can actually deliver success for everybody, because I think we've all learned a lot. I really want to thank you, the Regional Senior Managing Director with Accenture here in the Middle East, Alexis Lecanuet. Merci and au revoir, I guess.
Merci, Edna. Au revoir.
Thank you so much. And to all of our viewers, stay with us. We still have 2 great talks to come. We're not done yet, and we're still going to bring you many, many inspiring ideas and great conversations. So stay with ABLF, because we'll be right back.